I want to thank everyone for being here. This is a lovely space. I'm going to talk a little bit more about spaces when we move forward. But anyway, the title is The Importance of College Support Staff on College Success. And I'm going to try to get you out of here before 1 o'clock, so just give me the heads up, when I have to do that. There's a little quote underneath this title that says, all campus employees are engaged in recruitment and retention. Okay? And that's kind of going to be the theme moving forward. But kind of thinking about some of the obstacles and the nature of the various folks who work on campus and their roles and so forth and so on. So I'm going to kind of move along. Today I'm going to use anecdotal information, folks that I've talked to. I've been some research. Obviously there's research in this area, and experience. Okay, as Monica mentioned. I've been a professor at Occidental College for 23 years, but I also taught at East LA Community College as an adjunct for about 5 or 6 years. I worked at ETS for 7 years, as a research associate in adult literacy. And in that capacity, I learned a lot about this idea of adult basic education and English as a second language, ESL. And that's going to come up a little bit in today's presentation. And then, way back when, back in the 70s, I was a bilingual teacher in East LA, elementary school, okay? And most of what I learned about life, I learned on the road with kindergartners, okay? So again, that's something that's very important to think about. Okay, so who are support staff? Okay? And I'm going to probably be missing some folks today, right? But more, it's facilities, it's dining, landscaping, groundskeepers, campus security, right? Human resources, residence, housekeeping, custodial, health services, administrative support, right? So we have the registrars, admissions, financial aid, and I had to put in government relations because, right? And I probably missed some. Did I miss any, do you think? Is there anyone else? Yes, please. Okay. All right, any others that I miss? Okay, but this is, EOP? Yes, right? Yes, please. Okay, yes, right? And all of these entities, yes, is there one back there? Okay. All of these entities are part of that recruitment retention idea on the opening slide, the first quote. Everyone has a role, right? But there are issues. Okay, and the issues, let's start with the first one, right? What is the mission of the college? And does the mission of the college include all staff, all support staff, right? Colleges, what we say a lot of times is colleges are here to serve students, right? And we serve students in many capacities. And the mission, if it's diversity, inclusion, whatever that mission is, learning, right, access, so forth and so on. Does that include everyone? Does that include the folks who are working on the grounds? Does that include the folks who are in the dining areas? Does that include the folks who are in the offices, the admissions offices, the financial aid office, and so forth and so on? Okay, so that's one issue. The other is each support service entity has special needs, right? So some of the literature, when we talk about all of the folks who work on the campus as part of a campus community, right? They're not all necessarily in the same socioeconomic boat, right? There are some folks who work on campus who are poor, right? They're not making that much money. They're trying to make ends meet. They're trying to put their kids through school, right? And then you have, on the other hand, folks who work in various administrative offices who are doing relatively better, right? But they don't have the same needs as the folks that are working like in the dining or in the groundskeeping and so forth and so on. So each support service entity has its own special needs. Support staff sometimes work in the shadows of the college and lack status and visibility, right? So, when we walk to class, when professors walk to go teach and so forth and so on, we sometimes don't even recognize the infrastructure the people behind the college, the ones who are really making the college run in a lot of ways, right? And I must include in this list of folks, media, right? Folks who put, you know, the screens up and bring in the cameras and all those other folks, right? Sometimes we're not aware of that, right? And as folks who are invisible, it becomes problematic in terms of their status and what we think of them, how we perceive them, and what types of access they have to the college, to the university, right? So that's another issue. And please chime in if you have any comments that you want to make during this presentation, okay? Support staff access to college resources. Again, you know, students, right? They have access theoretically to everything the college offers, right? But sometimes staff doesn't have that access. Access to technology, do they have that access? Access to library, access to all of the different various resources that the college offers to students. Does staff have that access, right? Are they able to walk into a lecture? Are they able to audit a class? Are they able, or are they not perceived as folks who would who would benefit from that kind of a situation, right? So again, support staff sometimes don't have access. Intellectual classism, academy versus the community. Again, this is an issue that kind of is from this idea of community engagement, right? And the academy, how the academy perceives work in the community outside of the campus, right? Can faculty, for example, write an article about their involvement with a community-based organization, a Latino community-based organization? Is that considered academic, right? And the community is defined in the research sometimes as the community on campus, right? So it's not just faculty and it's not just students, but it's also support staff. See, you're part of the community as well. And again, so it goes back to this idea of status of the support community, right? And how can we get, you know, away from this idea, this intellectual separatism, where we say, oh no, you know, we speak a different language in the classroom or in the academy, or when we publish. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand, you wouldn't benefit from it, right? And and just to digress a little bit, you know, the work of Paulo Freire reminds us that, you know, folks, no matter how poor, have agency, have capital, and have a world vision. And that's important. And that should be, you know, the issue that drives us when we try to support all of our campus community, right? So intellectualism is really an interesting concept there. Service learning in college, community, adult literacy. Again, how do we believe that offering courses for our staff, because they may need these courses, you know, instead of them going outside of the college and going to a high school for evening classes, for example, because they want to improve their technology skills, or they want to improve their language skills or their writing skills, can we offer those courses on campus, right? So again, some of the issues, are there any other issues, do you think? Because I have another slide that's going to get a little more, you know. But I'm in El Centro, right? I'm in the El Centro here, so everything's good, right? Okay, and now why do I say that, right? Because I'm in a safe space. See, space is so important, right? And we have spaces throughout campus, right? But some spaces are not welcoming. See, you're not welcome in certain spaces. So that's why we need spaces that we feel welcome, and that our language, our language, we're taking a hit right now in the Spanish language, right? And the bottom line is we need spaces where we can be ourselves and we can speak our language and we can interact and talk about the things that are important to us, right? So that's where we get into campus climate. And how does the campus climate impact all of us, okay? Now, one, of course, very major issue in campus climate is race, right? And I have critical race theory in parentheses there. Because race, and I might be preaching to the choir here, but again, It is is at the center of a lot of what happens in society, but also what happens on college campuses, right? And race can be explicit, where you're just not being admitted to college because of your experiences, because of your K-12 experiences, or it can be kind of implicit, what they call, well, microaggressions, right? And this idea that, when you're walking around, whether you're in a student in a class, or whether you're in the Office of Admissions, or whether you're in financial aid, wherever you are, that people look at you and kind of wonder, what are you doing here, right? How did you get here? And God forbid that you and a couple other folks during the workday start speaking Spanish, right? It's like, whoa, wait, English, please, right? So again, race, language, culture, all of that plays an important role in terms of climate, right? And I don't want to, there's a lot of experiences that I have, because I've been at Occidental College for 23 years. And since we're being filmed, I don't want to start naming names but I suspect every campus has their issues, though, right? And Oxy, I don't believe is unique in this situation. But I mean, we've had some issues where, again, diversity is our mission, right? Remember the first slide. What is your mission? How does it impact you? Our mission is diversity. But whoa, are we still working on it, right? We're still working on it. Our students are still somewhat segregated, but then our staff too, right? Our staff are ignored by faculty sometimes, right? And we don't realize how important they are. I was at our last Latinx graduation, right? Because we get out earlier than you, okay? So that's why I look a little rested, okay? Okay, my last class was May 1st, so I'm. But the thing is, we're a semester system, right? But so at the Latinx graduation, the first thing the students at the podium talked about and thanked was dining, okay? They thanked housekeeping. They thanked all of these folks who are invisible. And they made them visible to the crowd, right? But I mean, other than that, you rarely get the shout out, right? You rarely get the shout out for the things that you do. First generation students also have particular issues. And first generation students sometimes have a lot in common with support staff, right? Especially support staff who are poor. Because those poor support staff, their children are probably going to be first generation if they go through college as well, right? So this support, so the first generation students, many of them speak Spanish, right? And they're looking for places to speak Spanish on campus. Again, safe spaces, right? They go into some classes, right, and they don't feel comfortable speaking Spanish. Not only that, there might not be anyone in that class who speaks Spanish. This whole idea of critical mass, right, that we need people. Now in the social sciences, we have more probably diversity than we do in the sciences, right? But if you're a Chicano or Chicana and you're in a physics class, you're not going to find many folks who speak Spanish. You will find folks, though, as you exit that building, somebody who's working around there, the señora who's working and cleaning, she speaks Spanish. And we'll see the students interacting with facility in that manner, right? So again, seeking out people that you can relate to, seeking out people that you can talk to, right? So that, again, first generation. SES race and traditional groups. I put this in because it's hard to deny this, right? Is that there are fraternities, sororities, clubs, so forth and so on, that are not welcoming. They're not welcoming to students of color and staff of color, right? There's an entitlement issue there. And so the thing is okay, so how do we address that, from a college standpoint? Because the college doesn't say diversity, access for just fraternities and sororities, right? It says for all, right? So how does your existence on campus, how do you deal with in some ways, overt racism? What we're seeing at San Luis Obispo right now, right? What we've seen in the San Diego colleges down south, just various examples, right, of you know, certain clubs and organizations really exposing their racist attitudes towards students of color. And faculty are not exempt from this either, right? There are occasions where fraternities have harassed faculty of color's wives and families and so forth and so on, okay? And so again, this is a deeper issue. Students of color, campus climate, again, I'm not sure about UCSB, but again, we have El Centro here, right? And I would imagine people kind of come here and flock here. At Oxy, we have the Ernesto Galarza room in the library. And that's where everything related to Chicanismo, you know, that's where it takes place, right? And how does these spaces, do we just have one space? Do we have two spaces? Do we have space in the library? Do we have space, you know, where are our safe spaces, right? Faculty of color in campus climate, same thing. A lot of times faculty of color, you know, you'll be teaching a class, folks will wonder, well, is this person qualified, right? Where did you get your degrees, or what did you, you know, so forth and so on, right? And then support staff of color in campus climate, right? And again, how are folks who work in the shadows, if you will, how are they acknowledged, right? How do we appreciate, you know, what they do? And is that campus climate relative to race, ethnicity, how is it impacting all of these three groups, really? There's a lot of literature on students of color, you know, some literature on faculty of color, but staff of color, you know, there's still probably a lot of work to be done in terms of how that you know, unfolds. And not just staff, but again, the hierarchy of staff, right, so to speak, the economic hierarchy of staff. And you know, if you have that person who's working in the cleaning and so forth. I remember an incident, and I'm not going to say, because I've taught at other colleges too, so let me just be generic here, where the students, you know, just after partying, they trashed, you know, a few places, you know, a few locations there. They trashed them, and some of the Latino students, kind of like, wait a minute, who's going to clean this? Who's going to clean this? See, nobody thinks that way. You know, you're in college, you're having a good time, you're partying and so forth and so on. You have a great time and then you leave, right? Somebody's got to go and pick up, right? And some of it gets pretty crazy. I mean, some of it gets really crazy, and it's really degrading sometimes to think that, yep, someone's got to go. You're college students, you know? But again, we think about it that way, especially because, you know, many of the folks who work in the areas of custodial, housekeeping, so forth, many of them are Latinos. Just like, you know, when we look at our hotels, our service industry, and so forth and so on, we have the same situation there too, right? A lot of Latinos in the back. I went to a sushi bar. It was supposed to be a really great sushi bar, right? And the sushi master's in the back, right? I go back there, there's Mexicano out there doing the sushi, you know? And it's like, yeah, and it was good. It was good, you know what I mean? Okay, and then finally the role of the Title IX coordinator and chief diversity officer. Because climate has been such a problem, right? And because mainly for students, faculty, but mainly for students, I'd like to extend this to support staff though, right? What is the role of the chief diversity officer? I don't know, do you have a chief diversity officer here on UCSB? We do, yeah. And this person is narrowed in, right, on the issues that affect students of color, faculty of color, right? And well, maybe staff of color should be included as well, right? And because there's a chief diversity officer, we've recognized over the years that there's a need for that position, right? There's a need for that position because things are just, you know, and it's really something because my other daughter, she went to Occidental College, right? And she had a great time there. She loved it, right? But I saw, and I don't know if you ever have a chance to, you know, be in this position, but it's a great position to be in some ways, right? You've been teaching on the college for what, 15 years, 16 years? Now your daughter goes there. You see the college differently now. right? You kind of go over there and let's see what the dorm looks like here. You know? Right? Who's that? Who's that? You know, so, and again, and so, I mean, she had a good experience, right? But again, there are, after faculty leave, who's left? Support staff and students, right? Another thing that's incredibly important about support staff is that they're there all the time. In other words, there's longevity, right? Students get, well, hopefully 4 years, 5 years, and they're out of college. Support staff are there. They see them coming and going, right? And they have institutional history, right? And that's another thing that's very, very, very important, right? So again, Chief Diversity Officer. Successful practices, let me just, and help me out here if you have some ideas, right? But you know, the literature about students is that they do better when they engage with faculty and staff, right? So we know, and we tell our students, and you know, I have the director here of a program here, a K-12 program coming into college, but we tell students, you know, if when you get into college, go to faculty office hours, connect with your faculty, right? And that's an issue, right? Because you know, sometimes faculty aren't very welcoming, right? But how about staff? See, one of the things, especially first-generation students, you know, when they have to go and check out, let me see, am I on track for graduation? Am I taking the right courses? They got to go to the registrar's office, right? The registrar staff, right? You may have some Spanish-speaking staff, they may not, you know, how welcoming are they? You see? Because students need to be connected. All students need to be connected, right? But students of color more so because they're, you know, they're not part of the mainstream admissions pipeline, right? And so who is the college serving, right? And so, or if financial aid, right? You want to go into financial aid and find out how much money you have left or how much money you need or negotiating, whatever, and loans versus grants, you know, you all know that, right? Are they welcoming to you? Are they you know, understanding of your concerns? Especially the idea that many students of color, first generation students, have to work, right? So college is one of their gigs, right? But they have to work also to make ends meet. So these are things that make their experience in college successful. They take on-campus work related to academics, labs, grants, so forth and so on. And again, this is, I think, where support staff come in, right? Most of our students of color have to do work, you know, so campus jobs are very important, right? Well, you know, some of the literature suggests that if your campus job is in the library, that's a pretty good gig. If your campus job is working on a grant, that's going to support your academic success, see? But if your campus job, and again, I'm just saying kind of what the literature, I don't want to demean anyone, but if your campus job, like mine was when I was in college, I was watering plants, right? I was in landscape and groundskeeping, right? That was not an academic job, you see? So how do these jobs get divvied out? And who accepts, how accommodating and accepting are these grants writers, these projects, these academic projects, the librarians and so forth and so on? How do they, accepting are they because students who are working on academic related student work have a better opportunity of being successful in college, right? And who do they go to and who are they with? They're with support staff, right? And even in departments, right? Whether it's a physics department or math department, they may have a project or a study that they're working on where they're going to need students to do number crunching or whatever the case may be, right? And so how do they just not only, maybe even recruit, right? Because it's passive if we say how many show up at the door. That's kind of a passive way of looking at things. How about if they're recruiting students of color and say, no, you're not going to work out there. You're going to work here in the lab. That's where we're going to have you working. See, and you can see the connection between that and doing well in academics there on the college campus. Okay, and then again, so I think I've said this before, but they engage and feel welcome and supported by administrative staff. So registrars, financial aid, health services. Again, it's important. I guess what we're seeing at SC right now, right, is that many undergraduates, have gone into their health center, and unfortunately, they were harassed and mistreated. That person eventually had to leave. Actually, the president resigned over this, right? That's health services. How accommodating are they, right? How empathetic are they? Understanding are they? And not only that, are they multilingual, right? So again, how are you received? And so again, if you're received in a very positive fashion, if you're received in a very accommodating, accepting fashion, then students will have a tendency to want to stick around. If students don't feel connected to campus, and again, I have someone in the audience who's probably up on this literature, Dean Milam over there. He's probably gonna fact check all my things today. But typically, especially students of color, if they don't feel connected to the college, that they're at risk of leaving, right? And so how do they feel connected? The college infrastructure has to make them feel connected, right? And that's very important. Okay, and then here's an interesting thing, and that is that example I gave you about messing up the room, and then Latino students kind of like, well, wait a minute, I think this is a bad idea. Students of color often feel a sense of social justice when staff are treated fairly by other students and administration. Right now, there's an issue on campus, my campus, where the students are trying to get the administration to hire more staff in the buildings, to clean the buildings and so forth and so on, because the staff that they have now are working a lot, right? And they have a lot to do. And of course, there are bargaining units in their union. I understand that too. That's kind of like a, kind of disclaimer in a certain sense, right? In other words, there are things that they bargain for, right? If they are union. I'm not sure if your folks here are union, but many times they are, and they bargain for certain things, right? Bottom line is you have these folks who are, students feel they're being mistreated, students feel they're being overworked, and so students organize on their behalf, you see? And it's typically students of color, because students of color can relate, right? So they feel a sense of social justice if they see that the workers on their campus are treated fairly. You know what I mean? And I'll have time for questions or comments, or so please don't hesitate on that. So finally, successful practices. Okay, there's this program in Swarthmore, and what they did is they offered this course where students took the course, and the course was offered to workers on campus, right? And the workers on campus and the students, they were a team. They worked together, and it was typically issues that the two felt were important to them, whether it was literacy, technology, right? And I understand that there's a technology, I think Luna has a technology program here, right? Because one of the things about going to workers and starting a class like this, it's nobody really wants to sign up for a class that says, yeah, I'm not literate, right? Or yeah, I can't write, or yeah, and that was going back to my ETS days when I was working in adult literacy, right? I mean, I would go nationally to libraries and community-based organizations, and the same theme would always come up, right? How do we make it so that people don't have to feel humiliated, right? But to realize and make it a powerful experience and say, no, we can work on a project that's meaningful, that's empowering, and guess what? It's also going to be, you're going to learn how to write, or you're going to learn how, whatever the case may be, right? So this program gives the students credit, and the workers, they participate, right? Sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's after their work hours, right? The staff, student, faculty advisory committees, there was this one project that I read about where there was a worker salary pay committee that was a joint committee of administration, faculty, and staff, right? But then again, something like that kind of a committee would probably be a committee that would be part of a collective bargaining agreement, I would imagine, right? But if it's not part of a collective bargaining agreement, it's when we have these committees on campus, whether they're for athletics, academics, sexual harassment, whatever the case may be, do we also include staff, right? Campus dining or campus or housing or whatever the case may be. Are they also involved, or are they invisible, right? And if they're invisible, we don't see them, so they're not on these committees. So these kinds of committees, campus security is so important. It's campus security, you know. Sometimes you feel safe. You should feel safe with campus security, you know. You know, at certain colleges that are in the city, you know, when the police from outside the campus come in, you don't know what to expect, unfortunately, right? But campus security, you should think, whoa, I feel pretty supported with campus security, right? But then sometimes campus security thinks they're outside police, right? And there's some good campus security, don't get me wrong, right? But again, certain things come up where it's important that they kind of coalesce with students and administration. And I bring up the issue at Yale, right? Where that graduate student was pulling an all-nighter and studying. She fell asleep, right? And another student, white student, called campus security. Campus security shows up, and instead of, I don't know, we're all one community, right? But instead, they detain her. They ask her for her ID. They ask her, and I was wondering, you know, why didn't they ask the white student? Wait a minute, before we start with this, look, who are you? Right? But they didn't do that. They went straight to the black student, and they asked her, and she had to go back to her dorm. She showed him her ID, and guess what? The name on the ID didn't match the name that she gave him. So, but again, it's campus security, assuming she don't belong there. Maybe you should assume that she does. I mean, if there's issues with security and harm and so forth and so on, fine. But this was an assumption that this woman did not belong on Yale campus because she was black, right? So anyway, campus security, all these committees need to be brought together. Now, I don't know what the UC system does. One of the perks that Oxy has, which I think is pretty cool, is, well, of course, faculty, their kids can go to Oxy for free, okay? Well, staff's kids can go to Oxy also for free. So when you have the graduation, you know, when I go to the graduation, campus-wide graduation, you know, you'll be there, and they'll announce the name, Monica Solorzano, right? And joining Monica at the podium with the president is, you know, Annette Solorzano, who works in housing on campus. Whoa, everybody's crying, man, you know, everybody's crying. It's like, whoa, that is so cool, right? So again, it's something that can happen, or other perks similar to that, I think, would be nice. Employee assistance programs, and again, these are programs that offer referrals, right? Because we find that many of our staff who are working in certain, you know, positions here on campus, that they need immigration help, right? Again, I'm not sure what UCSB has done. Oxy has established themselves as a sanctuary campus, right? And one thing that I give praise to the administration is that they said not only are our students going to be protected, right, but our staff too. And I'm thinking, good. They need legal assistance, right? They need legal assistance. They need support, counseling, advice, so forth and so on, right? So again, other referrals have to do with housing. And I don't think I have to stretch too far on this one. It's probably hard to find a housing around this area, right? Right? In Eagle Rock, in Highland Park, it's being gentrified right now. So it's becoming very difficult for our staff to find housing, right? So, so instead of saying, you know, how was your day? Welcome back to work. Maybe find out if they need help and assistance with housing, right? Other assistance with the ABE and ESL, right? If your staff would like to form a class for get their GED, right? Or a former class for English as a second language, or whatever the case, whatever they want, right? Will the college accommodate that, right? And that's a service that the college can provide. How am I doing? Okay. Okay, so housing, transportation assistance, childcare, okay? And I know most colleges have some kind of a childcare program for their kids, right? In many cases, childcare is an issue. They don't all have grandparents as nice as, as I am, But a childcare, we have a childcare program on campus, right? Mostly for faculty. Some staff, I think, also get a opportunity to send their kids there as well, and it's like a preschool daycare center for kids, right? And that should be offered. That could be offered. That would ease the load. Very important. Housing, childcare. Those are all issues that the folks need to address if they don't have that asset, that capital. Culturally and linguistically appropriate opportunities and services offered. Okay, so when we offer services to folks, do we do it bilingually, right, for our staff? Because a lot of our staff, and I would imagine here too, but a lot of our staff at Oxy speak Spanish. They don't speak English, or they're bilingual, but mostly Spanish dominant, right? And again, are the services offered and are culturally appropriate as well, right? There's been issues with cultural appropriateness in the dining, for example, right? When Cinco de Mayo or 16, and not just all the different all of the different holidays, right? They'll come up with some plate in the dining. It's like, whoa, who was on that committee, right? And there's actually been letters to the president and so forth and so on. I said, well, this is inappropriate, right? So again, is it culturally, linguistically appropriate, the opportunities and services offered? College investment in staff, professional and personal growth opportunities. Can staff benefit from what everyone else is benefiting from at this college, right? Can they take courses? Can they audit courses? Can they use the library? Can they use the technology? What else? What do we offer? All the things that we offer. Can they kind of just walk in like they own the place? That's what I tell my students, right? I tell my students, you walk on this campus like you own it, because you do. Because without you and your tuition, no matter where your tuition comes from, it don't matter. The bottom line is, without you, this place don't exist, right? So walk on campus with that attitude, all right? So again, how do we invest in our professional staff? Or is it a dead end, And part of that investment, I think, is making some of these services and programs and referrals and so forth and so on, making them accessible, right? And making it accessible in a very meaningful, empowering way, not in a deficit kind of thinking way, right? Oh yeah, you can't do this. Oh, you don't do this. We're going to offer this, and that makes the college feel good, right? Oop, I think I hit the mic here. Okay. Oh, that's it. Thank you. Good time for questions. How's that? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I know we have some folks in here from various parts of the campus. So, any questions? I'm sure you folks know a lot about this more than I do. So, anybody? I know you have that the technology project for your workers. Yeah, could you?
Like this year we got a grant from the Healthy Campus Network. It's the grant that is in the 10 UC campuses. And Luna applied, and one of the projects was to get staff in housing, dining, and auxiliary services and in facilities to take computer classes in Spanish.
Wow.
So we have around 120 people taking those classes. So they do it a little bit different. Facilities, they come at 6 a.m. in the morning. I mean, they are working already, right? So
Yeah.
from 6 to 7 a.m., 4 days a week, they have groups of 10. And then there is another one in the evening. And then housing is more individualized. They get 2 to 3 people per group, and they rotate the students every 3 weeks. And the people who teach those courses are students here who
Okay.
are bilingual.
Yeah.
So, but I really like the model that you presented about having, co-taught classes where, or students and staff have classes together. So
Yeah.
if we get the grant renew, I think that would be a great
Yeah.
way to try to do that.
Yeah,
So,
good.
yeah, that's one thing we are doing. But, housing, dining, and auxiliary services have been teaching classes in Spanish forever.
Hmm.
It's either personal development, like
Good.
computer writing, ESL classes. So for them, it's a constant.
Yeah, good. Any other examples out there? What do you think would be useful? What type of a program or service do you think would be useful for staff at all levels or whichever level? Other than, of course, more money, right? That's always useful. Yeah.
UCSB offers extension courses, and while we get a discount, they're still very expensive.
Mhm.
I mean, they're not affordable
Yeah.
for most of us. So
Yeah.
I would like to see something done so that it would be offered as a benefit.
Right.
That you could go to these extension classes and you could get certifications that would make you promotable.
Hmm. Yeah. Right.
Because it's like, you have to pay to go to the classes at UCSB in order to get
Right.
promoted.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Professional development, advancement, right? Helping somebody move forward, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like continuing education, if you will,
Mhm.
that will create opportunities for staff advancement
Mhm.
and also to appreciate their bilingual abilities that are
Yeah.
cultural competence related to that as well. So
Mhm.
figure out ways that, like Viviana was saying, in terms of staff receiving in the language they're most comfortable with, but also to recognize that those are skills that are the future.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Right. 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 Do we have students in the audience here? Oh, yeah, please.
I think that it's a long time that we've worked hard and it hasn't been able to accomplish that UC Santa Barbara is one of the lowest paid campuses across the state. And we don't understand that because we're so expensive now. It's not like before where our living was very different. And so it's very difficult people to survive in the income that we get here
Yeah.
with the rents raised as much as they are every time people want to raise your rent.
Yeah.
So I think that we're hoping that top administration will look into why are we the lowest paid campuses. I think we're either the second to the lowest or the lowest. And so I think as a whole, because even top administration aren't making the same as other campuses. So it's not just the lower paid people,
No.
but it's also the top paid people
Right.
that are at that same situation.
Right.
So I would hope that at some point in time, they work on that to help cost of living, childcare, transportation.
Right.
I mean, gas has skyrocketed, so those people that bought homes outside of the area having to commute, it's raised their costs just to get to work.
Yeah.
We pay for parking, we have to pay for everything to come to work.
Right. Yeah.
And I love to work here. I mean, I love working here, but I also I think that we all want the same thing, is to be treated equally across the state.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was kind of the theme too of today, right? Is like, are you of equal status or are you acknowledged? And one of the things that folks sometimes suggest is, okay, so if we can't do salary, what other perks can we give you that would make life easy for you? And again, I know that's a compromise though, because the bottom line is, and that might be a collective bargaining issue, I'm not sure, money, of course, right? But if we can't do that for whatever reason, what else can we do? Put our heads together. What else can we do to make life easier for us that maybe we don't need money to do? And that's something that you folks would probably know better, being in the field. But that's important. Working from home, if you can, or some kind of different scheduling.
I'm new to UCSB. I come from Madison, Wisconsin. I work at a community college over there. And at the new employee orientation that they had,
Mm-hmm.
they had a couple of people from facilities, and I was shocked that there was nobody there, no paper or somebody to help the non-English speaking individuals, because there was a point where they break off and then the union will come in, and like 3 guys were just sitting there like, first of all, they didn't understand a word that was said throughout the whole thing, about benefits, about nothing, and then second of all, they just sat there and nobody was there to help them, you know, and so then I have to explain to them that, you know, are you part of the union? I don't know. And I'm like, okay, what do you know, so I was just, I mean, for Southern California, I mean, I expect that out of Madison, Wisconsin. That I completely expect, but I was just like, just taken aback at how little they helped the new, not faculty, but the new staff that did not speak English. And they didn't understand an iota of what was said during the presentation.
Yeah.
So they have no clue what their benefits are. They have no clue what their, you know, what perks or anything like that.
Right,
So
right.
it was really surprising to me that there was no assistance for the Spanish speakers.
Yeah. And that's something that should be on the radar, right? I mean, somebody should know that, hey, you know, a lot of the folks that work for us speak Spanish. And so therefore, we should probably have some way, like Viviana today started off with, anybody need assistance with Spanish? Raise your hand kind of thing. That should be taken for granted. Absolutely. Yeah.
Another issue is a health issue that happened when we had the fire.
Ooh.
Faculty were allowed to, I mean, they canceled classes, students were allowed to go home, but staff had to stay on campus and be exposed to any toxic substances. And it wasn't until the union spoke up that we were given masks, that we were allowed to have time off if we were sick.
Yeah.
So there's still the issue with health concerns for us staff, and even when we had the violence on campus, there was a lot of help extended to the students that were exposed to the trauma. But like you said, they leave in 4 years. They leave in 5, 6 years because they're in graduate school, but the staff stays.
That's right. Yeah.
And at one point, they started offering some assistance, but it was minimal. It wasn't at the level that was offered to others on the campus.
Right.
Yet after the students leave, we're still here, and
That's
we
right.
have to relive the trauma.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you see the campus community, and I know it's late, everyone's going back to their jobs now, but that when you look at the campus community, right? Okay, how is everyone being affected by smoke, right? And fire, and floods, whatever the case may be? How can we address that for all of our community? And that's what I was, you know, opened up with, kind of like not everyone in the community maybe is being viewed similarly, you know, which is something that all of us, not just this campus, all campuses, right? Because a lot of the literature, they talk about other campuses, whether it's, you know, in Wisconsin or you know, New York or wherever the case may be. Right? Thanks a lot for sharing your lunch with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.